The largest trade show of its kind in this industry, InfoComm, happens every year, bouncing back and forth between Las Vegas, Nevada, and Orlando, Florida. This year, on June 12th, 13th, and 14th, it was in Las Vegas. Visix was there, of course, with a whole bunch of stuff in their booth, and so was my guest, Brian Galante.
Hello, sir. How are you, my friend?
Excellent. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. I appreciate you having me on as always.
Thank you very much. Brian is the founder and owner of Dimension PR, and he's going to share some insights and things that he saw at the show. Thank you for listening to this episode of the podcast. You can subscribe, and you can review us, and you can follow along with a transcript on the Visix website. Whether you're using digital signage or not, our podcast gives you practical tips for communications and content to better engage your audience. I'm Derek DeWitt. Welcome to Digital Signage Done Right. So this year, I think Visix had a pretty good year. They got their lead count where they wanted it, and the booth was pretty busy. The show seemed, kind of like what we were saying with ISE back then. Hey, things are back. Like it's all back.
Yes. And beyond the cool, crisp, and comfortable June weather of Las Vegas, InfoComm in some ways feels like a holiday in comparison to the exponential growth of ISE. I mean, that show just continues to, experience off-the-rails growth. And while InfoComm is maybe not growing as fast or may even be static, its importance cannot be overstated for the pro AV industry in the Americas. This is the show for the North American channel. And it's an ideal place for manufacturers with a domestic presence to meet with their regional partners throughout the country, as well as Canada and into Latin America. And while it remains primarily a venue for the dealers and integrators that sell, design, and install AV systems, there's a stronger contingent from the end user community that's coming to this show now. And I find that really interesting. Several of my clients active in the corporate and education verticals, especially, reported visits from the decision makers with enterprise businesses and higher ed institutions that are coming to this show now specifically to evaluate new products as they come to market. That is especially true in the areas of workplace collaboration, classroom audio, and naturally digital signage.
Oh, that's quite interesting. Well, I'm glad to hear that. I mean, why not? Here it is. Play with it,
Well, you have the tech managers that are actually using these products. So certainly, the integrators, the dealers, the consultants, they're the ones who are specifying the systems and creating the systems designs. But ultimately, it's the tech managers and the people who work there and teach there and learn there that are going to have to use these systems. So increasingly, they want to know what they're installing and what's being put in.
Absolutely. No tech event this year or last year would be complete without, of course, AI. I know that there was an AI stage, and it seemed like people were they're still talking about AI, artificial intelligence, in this kind of like what it's going to become in the future. Not really what it is yet, because I think for a lot of people's visions, it's not quite there yet. Like, I know Deb told me she overheard a guy saying, like, I can imagine, like, you go into your coffee shop and, you have all these AI linked apps, and they all know somehow what diet plan you're on, what you like, what you don't like, and heck, it knows what's on the menu, and it knows what the specials are that day because your AI is talking to their AI, and even just orders for you unless you overwrite it, so like you walk into a Starbucks and sit down and your order's already been placed. This is the kind of almost blue sky someday in the future stuff that people seem to be talking about with AI, but they're certainly talking about it.
Yeah, I can't think of a technology in the history of the modern world that has proliferated as quickly as AI. Definitely in terms of everyday conversation, but also in terms of application development. Last year, AI activity on the floor was definitely in its formative stages. Now, I think we are seeing some development of real-world AI applications that are coming to market. I will say in comparison, I was at the NAB show in April, and I'm seeing much faster development of working applications coming to market in the broadcast industry than AV. That's just based on, my reflections and what I saw. In the AV space, what I'm seeing is voice AI activity taking off. One area where I'm seeing interest is on the quick service restaurant side of the business, where voice AI is powering indoor kiosks and drive-through ordering. And as those orders go in, that speech is being converted to text through AI algorithms. Likewise, AI for text-to-speech conversion appears to be a hot button item this year, particularly as it pertains to paging and public address applications in airports, transportation centers, and retail environments. I mean, think of someone working in a command and control center that needs to fire off a quick emergency notification, or quickly update an arrival and departure schedule. These are pre-recorded announcements, that can be launched with the push of a button, and you have AI, basically transmitting it out, into speech. But AI in general has proven to be a useful tool to accelerate content creation. And I think that text to speech, speech to text, that falls under content creation. But in the broadcast space, I'm seeing it with ad copy. We're seeing it in the virtual production world now. It'll be interesting to see how, other verticals, including live event venues and universities, take advantage of this technology moving forward.
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of people still are conceiving of it in this sort of from the audience's point of view. And it's interesting, like you said, like, hey, there's somebody in the command center. This is behind the scenes stuff where AI is also useful. And I think that's probably where it's at first going to be applied. For example, Visix unveiled a brand new gesture control interactive screen system that utilizes AI, actually. There are like 4 or 5 completely separate apps that the AI kind of manages. It's like there are certain movements you do with your hand instead of physically touching the screen. This means pan right. This means open up this window. This means close a window, and so on. This means scroll. Different gestures mean different things. And the AI combined with the camera and these 4 or 5 different apps, it kind of is the manager in the middle that kind of goes, okay, this is happening, so let me grab from this app and this app, and it makes it all come together. And I think that's certainly going to be the early days of practical applications of artificial intelligence.
Yeah, that was really interesting. And I suppose that was the Christmas morning reveal for Visix on the book.
Yes, that's exactly right. Yeah.
I hadn't heard anything about it leading up to the show, but
well, it was being worked on, and there was like, okay, it is going to work, right? Like, we know it'll work eventually, but is it going to work by June 12th? And we got it up and running, and so hey, check it out.
And you got to have those surprises at the show, and it was fun, and people were responding to it, and I think most importantly, the application was responding to the gestures, so it did work. Another interesting thing with AI as it pertains to digital signage is I'm seeing, or well, maybe not seeing is the right word, but hearing about more tools on the content creation side that are, used for other purposes, like Canva starting to find its way into the digital signage universe. And I think that's interesting for the content creator who, may have, let's just say, a very modest skill set, or, some sort of intimidation about content creation. Bringing tools like that, AI tools like that, into the digital signage content creation universe, I think could be quite interesting for, let's say, smaller businesses and K-12 schools moving forward.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, advice we've always given to people is, hey, look, go to places like Pixabay and Pexels and other places where you can find high quality images. Especially, a lot of people have Shutterstock subscriptions, and it's funny that my wife and I will be like in some airport somewhere while we're traveling, and we'll go, oh, I know that image. There's an image on that poster for their tourism board. I've used that exact image in something that I've created, Even with the enormous libraries that are out there, there's a limited set of imagery that people choose, and the same ones seem to get chosen again and again and again. So you see them popping up. That one guy is selling hair product and cars and massages and furniture, because he's so popular. So when you get into AI content creation stuff, especially for visuals, I think it helps people really create unique imagery that nobody else has.
Excellent point.
Show me something I've never seen before.
That's what we all want, right?
Yeah. Now, I know that you mentioned something about esports, which is not something I think of when I think of an event such as InfoComm, but esports live events. They had another one this year.
Yeah, I've been trying to figure this out for a couple of years. What is this esports thing all about? Why do we care in the AV industry? And, how does the technology support it? And it's that latter point that I think really brings it all together. It is the technology, driving the signal management and transport, that really matters, when it comes to creating a professional esports environment. Now, I should say that esports does not seem to have really taken off on the professional level. Whomever is behind the esports community is still, working on that professional business model. I.e., I don't think there's a way you can really make money off it yet. But there's a growing passion for it in the higher ed community. And InfoComm held its esports live event again, I believe for the second year. That included live gaming competitions on a stage. There was a shoutcast area with event coverage. One of my clients actually built an esports set on their booth. And it was interesting to watch, just these random gamers appearing out of nowhere, coming onto the stand, and they were engaged in competitions. They were practicing their skills before they went to the main InfoComm stage. That was really fun to see. But what wowed me was how AV over IP technology and networked AV control and video wall displays have matured to the point where this entire esports ecosystem can come together, and the AV technology can truly accommodate the fast action switching, the low latency delivery, the artifact-free presentation required to support a dynamic esports gaming environment. I have to think there's a potentially interesting connection to be made between esports and maybe how a multi-site digital signage network on a college campus would work. So I think that might be something that Visix can look at for InfoComm 2025, perhaps.
Well, maybe, But it's interesting. You say that there's not really a way to make money at it. I think that's true in the United States. The United States is lagging behind in this regard because in other countries, and I'm thinking specifically of Pacific Rim Asia, Japan, Korea, even Thailand and Malaysia and certain parts of Indonesia. It's a massive industry. Both 2019 and 2020 global revenues topped $1 billion. It's massive. Some people, this is literally what they do for a living, is they play video game sports competitively. And I think it's just now starting to really, like the Americans are going, dangle money in front of Americans and they go, oh, I'm sorry, what did you say? Did you say $1 billion? Okay, well, maybe now I'm interested. So they're hustling to figure out a way to kind of make this something viable in that country.
And whoever thought that gaming would turn into a potential profession? My 14-year-old self playing my Atari 2600 had dreams and visions, and it's a reality today. Not for me, but for others.
Yeah, which is great. If that's your skill set, that's your skill set.
Absolutely.
Obviously, a lot of stuff we saw it at ISE, and I think we see it again at InfoComm this year. Meeting spaces have had to become much more flexible and much more sort of tech dependent because we've got hybrid offices and remote workforces and, meetings where, there are 75 participants, but only 15 of them are physically in this office and only 10 are physically present in a different office. So we're seeing that whole space change quite a bit, I think.
Yeah, and that was the big push last year. I mean, the whole return to office movement. How do we set up a formidable hybrid environment where, the physical and the remote attendee can be equal participants? And, we saw that taking place last year through notably camera tracking and beamforming microphone systems that can identify and follow the presenter or speaker throughout the room. And, that's important for the remote attendee that, frankly, is trying to, be involved, in the proceedings. This year, I think the focus is a little more back inside the room. And it's all about simplifying connectivity. USB-C is becoming the primary connection point for laptops, mobile devices for the end user. And vendors that specialize in switchers and signal extenders for signal management and transport inside meeting and even learning spaces are beginning to put a stronger emphasis on USB-C development in their products. And the reason is simple. USB-C offers the efficiency of passing video, audio, control data, and device charging over a single cable. And moving toward that as a primary connection point is going to make it easier for people to walk into a room, connect, and present. One very interesting solution I saw turned a standard docking station into a USB-C extender. I thought that was way cool. What I thought was quite interesting, it removed HDMI and these other wired connections on the front end. So you basically had one USB-C connection from the laptop going into this extender, and then on the output, the device opened up connectivity to cameras and displays. It was very clever.
I see. I'm all for it. I honestly think there should be a single connection type for everything, which is, the EU mandated this for smartphones, and they're talking about mandating it for all sorts of things in the near future. So they're kind of leading the way on this. But I think this is the future. Why not?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, of course, speaking of meeting rooms, one of the other things Visix showed again was this Koros product, which is a basically deviceless if you want. I mean, you can use availability lights or small EPS signs or whatever you want, but it really just uses the native web AR that's on everybody's phones. And it's just kind of, boom, I need to book a space or any asset space, bicycle, parking space, locker, doesn't really matter. I just do it all through an interface that pops up on my phone and gives me a bunch of options and information. This kind of BYOD device is very much part of Visix's big push this year, which is sustainability, which, I know it's a bit of a cliche, but in order to kind of drive that message home, there was a lot of green in that booth.
A lot of green, and it looked sharp. And beginning with Koros, it's as simple as walk up and book. It's interesting. There's little tiny QR tags that they have. I mean, they're so small, and you can put them anywhere, and you can put them on a desk and on the side of a booth and so forth, everywhere. So just that ability to BYOD, use your own device, walk up and book a space without any hassle, just enormous. And yeah, part of that greater sustainability message, which is, less is more. I mean, digital signage has always been more sustainable than, let's say, printing out posters and reprinting out posters and reprinting and so forth, et cetera, et cetera. And, that's been one of the selling points for digital signage from the start. But, what's interesting with this whole sustainability growth is just how it's really extending into this larger ecosystem for the workplace. For example, the extension of digital signage into meeting rooms, which has been going on for a while. That was just sort of the first stage. Now we're delivering content to smartphones and desktops, the way that the digital signage ecosystem is expanding to, streamline infrastructure and minimize costs while also having some environmental impact. And Koros, just the booking platform for smartphones, the way it extends workplace connectivity even further without adding any more hardware, really just nails it home.
Yeah, I know that there's a lot of talk of sustainability, and a lot of us are very wary of greenwashing attempts where people go, "Oh, it's more economical and it's more, environmentally friendly," and then you look into it and you're like, it is literally the exact same product that they've always had. They've just made the like in a washing powder, but now the little crystals are green, and so they're saying that somehow that's more sustainable. I'm seeing a lot less of that these days and more legit, like, oh, well, maybe we should actually look into this and incorporate real sustainable solutions into our products and services. I think we're seeing a legitimate attempt to embrace this idea, because here's the thing, folks. It's here to stay. The audience wants it. So companies need to get on board or get left behind.
It's all about having one interconnected ecosystem when it comes down to it, a solution where you can optimize resource usage, minimize waste, and increase efficiencies.
Yeah. I mean, that to me seems like, why has that not always been the motivator? You know what I mean? But I think it's interesting. It's also a way to, because things are changing so quickly. Like you said, 3 years ago, AI, that was something we talked about in science fiction movies. And now you can't, walk 15 feet without tripping over somebody saying AI. So things are changing so rapidly that I kind of feel like this sustainability push is also a way to kind of a little bit future-proof your business.
An outstanding point as always, my friend.
So that's a little bit of insight into what went on at InfoComm 2024, which was in Las Vegas this year. June next year, we'll be back in Orlando, Florida, and of course, Visix will be there, and I assume you will be as well, Brian.
How could I miss it?
And are we going to see you at ISE again next year?
Absolutely, absolutely. But I have to tell you, I am so over the trade show business for a while. Give me 6 months of non-trade show life, please.
Right. I'd like to just write some press releases, please, and get them placed.
I would just like to create and, do the things that I do. No, I will, by the time ISE rolls around, this will be a distant memory and I will be revived. And by the time InfoComm 2025 passes, I'll be completely burnt out again of trade shows. It is just one vicious annual cycle forever and ever.
Yes, that's very true. I think a lot of people feel that way. For people that are interested, you can see some information about all the fun things that we showed in our booth and visix.com/InfoComm. That's OMM at the end. And you can see the webpage there for that. As always, I'd like to thank Brian Galante. He is the owner and president of Dimension PR. It's always an interesting conversation, sir.
My man, I appreciate it. I agree. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And again, I remind everybody out there that you can read the conversation we just had in a transcript, also on the Visix website, but this time under Resources. For more free stuff, head to Resources on Visix.com for guides, videos, and more to help with your visual communications. Please subscribe and share, and contact us for information about our digital signage solutions.